Current Waupun inmate says he's taking part in a hunger strike. This comes after recent charges against the warden and 8 other employees at Waupun Correctional Institution. In a First Alert update, Emily Byer joins us now with details of this protest and why it's significant at Waupun.
Cami, there are currently 720 inmates housed at the Waupun Correctional Institution. I spoke with one of them. He says he's not eating, and he says many others are not either as part of a hunger strike. This is important to note because one of the inmates' deaths in those recent charges died during a hunger strike where the Dodge County Sheriff says employees did not follow hunger strike protocols. The inmate I talked to today tells me he hasn't eaten since Friday morning, and he doesn't plan to until there is change. He says he's calling on Governor Tony Evers and the Attorney General to make new legislation or to close the prison. He says there's been a lack of accountability and inhumane treatment at the facility. Our media partners in Stevens Point are on a tour with the governor right now. We hope to ask him questions about the prison. We've found the protocols for hunger strikes on the DOC's website. It clearly states meals and fluids have to be offered regularly, and electrolyte replacements such as Gatorade need to be offered, as well as a direct order from health services. I've reached out several times to the Department of Corrections and the Waupun Correctional Institution for an interview or a statement and have not yet heard back. Jeff.